leaders, you got to want what's best for others. And what's the best part of leadership, and you've probably experienced this in other areas, Gage, but when you take people and they experience something greater than they ever thought they could. That's the whole point. It's not, you don't want to lead people just for your benefit. You want to lead people for their benefit. Welcome to the Getting Better podcast, where we're just trying to get better. We know we don't have it all together. We know we haven't made it. We know we're not perfect, but we are trying to get better. And we're doing that day by day as we grow through conversations with others and conversations with each other. And welcome to my co-host, my friend, more importantly, Gage. What's going on, my man?
Thanks, Kenner, man. I'm telling you, I just enjoy being with friendly people, and I like being able to do that with you. I like being able to do it here. I don't know. I'm just excited. I think it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, man. And so so for anyone listening, how the getting better process is, I think it happens a lot through relationships. And so that's what we're trying to do here, but also learning new stuff from people. We're going to invite people on and do interviews and ask them maybe areas of expertise or maybe areas they've grown in. And we just want to maybe copy the ways, maybe some healthy patterns they have in their life. And because we want to be better in all areas, whether that's, taking care of my body a little bit more, maybe our finances, prayer, spiritual disciplines, relationships, of course. But we're just trying to get better. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think if you're watching or if you're listening, maybe you're like us, you just want to get better. And I think we're going to be able to do that, Gunner. I really do, especially with the people we have the conversations with that can help us grow. Like you said, I want to grow in those areas, especially my faith journey. I really want to grow there. And I think as I grow there, some of the other areas of my life will grow too. But I really want to grow there, and I'm excited to be able to do that.
So in a small group last night, we had a conversation about, the fruits of the Spirit. And I think, I want to be a person who has good fruits, and I want those things to grow. And they all come from remaining in Jesus. I'm not saying like I'm not going to work to produce good fruits of my own, but like what are those processes as far as being connected to the source to produce good fruit? I want to be a person known with good fruits, and this is kind of hand in hand with that. But yeah, it's exciting. I think everybody wants to fulfill their God-given potential. Like I don't want to, the parable of the talents. I don't want to shortchange what God's given me. I want to maximize whether that's my influence, my time, the time I'm present here on earth and the time I have with people. I just want to steward that correctly.
Yeah, and I think Jesus wants that, It's like, what's he say? Is it, I don't know, John 10:10 maybe, where he says, the thief comes to steal, kill, destroy, but he said, I want to give you life to the full. And I think for us to have life to the full, some of that is in those relationships that we build and that we grow, because in that produces the fruits of the Spirit. And I think those fruits of the Spirit is what he means by living life to the full.
Oh, yeah.
We want to have that love, joy, peace, all those things. So, and again, I think you could I'm sure you can do it on your own, but you can't do it as good on your own as you can with other people. And so that's really what I want to do.
Yeah, I think, people try to muster up, and I don't want to go down too far on this because I don't, want to keep this in a time frame. But like I remember people like, joy is just not my personality. It's not your personality. It's a fruit of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And like, if you want to be a more joyful person, it's not you just, changing the way you are. No, it's being connected to a higher power.
Because we can't do it.
No, we can't.
We can't. That's why we want to get better.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm excited about it. I think it's just going to be awesome. But anyways, saying that, is it getting or getting? My mom tried to correct me. Is it getting or getting?
Oh, that's a great question.
I can't say getting with a straight face.
I think it depends. I think since we're in the South, we'll go with getting.
Yeah, it's like, get over here.
But but
get her done.
Where you're at. Get her. That's what comes to my mind. Get her done. Getting better. That's a good one.
Yeah, well, it's
depending on what part of the country you're from. I think maybe it's different. But for me, it's most certainly getting. And if I would have said getting around my granny,
yeah,
I think she would have laughed at me.
Yeah, she wouldn't have understood.
No.
It made fun of you.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you learning in school, boy?
Yeah.
No, but we're excited. This week's podcast, or this month's podcast, is actually a conversation between me and Gage about leadership. And I leadership is one of the things that I love. I think we could all grow in this area because we all have an area of leadership in our life. And we all have influence. And John Maxwell says this way, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So no matter where you are in life, you have influence, whether that's your house, whether that's your school, whether that's your work, you have some level of influence with people. And how do you maximize that? How do you make it for the greater good, not just for you to succeed, but for everybody, to make the biggest difference you can? And so that's what we're going to talk about, some of the leadership principles that are helping us get better. We're not perfectionists on leadership. These are quotes and sayings and models from other people and that we've learned, and they are current leadership principles that are making us better. So we want to come across that with in the most humility possible, because we're not perfected this, but we are trying to grow. We are trying to get better. Saying that, you got one? You want to go first?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, everybody's leading somebody. And, it could be in your family, it could be in your friend group, on your basketball team, But in our daily lives, I think we all have an influence on someone.
Absolutely.
And when I think about it from a Christian perspective of a leader, the quote from Chris Hodges comes to mind, and I heard it a couple weeks ago, but it's like, I want my life to be so attractive that people who don't know God will want to know God because they know us or because they know me. And so when I think about that, I'm trying to think of the characteristics that make my life so attractive that people want to see more of. And so the first one that comes to my mind with regards to leadership is servant leadership. And I think the greatest leader of all time, hands down, would have to be Jesus, right?
No debate.
No debate. I mean, he started with 12 people, and really, actually, he only started with a couple fishermen, and he ended up having, now there's billions and billions and billions of people that are involved in the Christian faith or have been. And so he's the greatest leader. And his biggest, one of his biggest principles, I think, is servant leadership. And he teaches his disciples that. And I can't remember where it is, but he says it all throughout Scripture. But my favorite place, he's talking to the disciples, and he tells them, he says, you've seen that the Pharisees, they lord it over people. They lord their authority over people. And, I'm a middle school teacher, so I think of flexing, so they're flexing their authority on people. But Jesus says, not so with you. So obviously he's wanting something different. Then he goes on to tell them, whoever wants to be great must become the servant. And then he says, he's like, even I didn't come into the world to be served. He said, I came to serve. So I think that may be the greatest and one of the greatest principles of leadership is having that servant leadership mentality, because when people see that you're serving, they want to get involved with what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, being a servant or being in servant leadership, basically what does that say to people? It says, they're not just about themselves, because a lot of people want to lead for their benefit, but it says that, hey, they're not too big, they're not too mighty to help with this or help with that. Do something on the small level, and those are people, the kind of people you want to be around, the kind of people you want to follow. And I think that's doing something for someone else always helps connect, right? I think whether that's something small like opening the door for somebody or making a coffee for somebody, doing something small like actually, whether any area of servanthood connects. And Jesus obviously models it best. And I think at the Passover meal, he washes all their feet, right? And it was shocking. But that's what he said, hey, I modeled this for you. I want you to go do the same.
Yeah, and if you know me, you'll know that I'm an avid Tennessee sports fan. If you don't know me, now you know I'm an avid Tennessee sports fan. And so, but a couple years ago, some of the guys on their basketball team had a saying, that said, it's not about me. And they put it on T-shirts, and they were putting it on their social media stuff. And so when we think about servant leadership, if you're really being a servant, then it's not about you.
Right?
Because then you wouldn't be a servant. And so I think that perspective is what makes you want to be a servant leader. And, you can't just say it, right? It's easy to say it. It sounds like a good idea, right? Jesus showed it, and he showed it, by washing the disciples' feet, which, again, that's like the least of the least did that, right? For the rulers and for the Pharisees, that's the people who did that. And Jesus says, no, I'm going to do that for you. And it reminds me of what Peter says when he starts washing. He's like, no, don't wash my feet. I don't want you to wash mine. You shouldn't do that to me. And Jesus says, no, I have to do this, or you're not part of this. And he says, well, hey, wash all of me. And so, as a servant leader, you can't just say stuff. You actually have to follow through with it. And Jesus showed that. Absolutely.
And it's easy to wear the T-shirt to say the saying, but you can tell where it sets people apart when they actually do it. So servant leadership's huge. My turn.
Let's hear yours, Gunnar. What is one of your top priorities for a leader to possess?
All right, so mine are kind of in the form of quotes. I've stolen these from Craig Rochelle, which is, you should listen to his leadership podcast because it's much better than ours. But I love this thing right here. He says, you can't lead people if you don't love them. And I just think that's so beautiful, so just straightforward. You can't lead people if you don't love them. And people will try to lead people, but they don't really care about them. And people can tell that. They can tell that people are all about their motives, their wants, they can tell when the leader's about their agenda, right? Yeah. And the thing is, if you're always leading and you don't really care for the people, you're not going to have people actually there to lead. They're not going to be around for you to lead, because you can't lead people unless you have them, unless you have their buy-in. And how do you get people's buy-in? You love them.
Yeah, and when I'm thinking about servant leadership, you wouldn't want to serve somebody if you didn't love them. So right. I think love might have to be that guiding principle. And I don't have to be like a weird, No. When we say love, it ain't like a weird type of love. Just a genuine, care for someone, for whoever. Just a genuine care that you want to see them succeed. And if you see them walking through the door and you say, no, I want to get the door for you. I want to go get this coffee for you, right? I'm going to serve you, but not because I love you. It's because I love you. Yeah. And I want you to know that. And I think if people know that somebody loves them, and that changes the game.
Absolutely. And I think, bring it back to Jesus again, I think the servant leadership and the love thing is very connected. But why would they be, Chad Veach actually mentioned this on his Leadership Leaning podcast, why would they so passionate about following Jesus? Maybe they could tell that he actually loved them. He cared about them. Not just a momentary thing, but actually them as people. And so what an easy leader to follow, someone who would lay their life down. And I love it so much because actually John, the disciple John, actually called himself the disciple whom Jesus loved. So he understood, he loves me, and that's why I'm going to follow him. That's why he's the best leader ever. And I just think it's so you see leaders who lead out of the wrong motives, right? And just to set it straight, you don't love people to get what you want. You don't love people to
that
get
is not followed. Love, is
no,
it?
No, that's not love. That's it. It's without a you're not giving to get, right? That's not the motives here. No, you're true love. Being loving in leadership is wanting the best for people. And if you're a leader who is trying to lead people to something that is just for your benefit, then you're not actually leading people. You're just using them. And I think people can tell when they're being used. And it's honestly sad, to be honest, because it's you don't care about them, their longevity. You just want them to help accomplish your goal. And your goal may be good. Your goal may be awesome. Your vision, your dream may be really good. But if you don't want something for other people and you just want something from them, your goal is really not that important.
Yeah, I think it's so blurred because I'm trying to think of some people, not people I know, but maybe some famous people in our world today that are leaders, and I'm trying to think of where's the love. If I was trying to think of something they do that makes me, oh yeah, they love, and I'm having a hard time thinking seriously, because we hear the word love so much, and in songs and in movies, and we just so I think it can easily get blurred on what love is, because again, it's not we're not talking about nothing weird. I mean, we're talking about a genuine care, right? Wanting the best for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Even if it's putting, even if it doesn't seem like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this. You know what I mean? Because that's not about love. Yeah, it's not what you can get out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of motives of leaders. But we want leaders. You got to want what's best for others. And what's the best part of leadership? And you've probably experienced this in other areas, Gage. But when you take people and they experience something greater than they ever thought they could, that's the whole point. It's not you don't want to lead people just for your benefit. You want to lead people for their benefit and see where it takes them.
Because okay, this is yes or no. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Are we all searching for something? Do we all have something that we're trying to fill in our lives?
Short answer, yes.
Thank you. Short answer. So that being said, as a leader, when you're going for a different purpose, maybe a higher purpose, you can lead someone into that place where they didn't know that's what they needed until they got there and tried it.
Absolutely. And it's like, you want more for people.
Yeah.
And it's like, we won't go down the rabbit holes of what all that more is in different areas of life, but like you want people to achieve that more and feel the fulfillment, feel the purpose, feel like my life has value. And, I think that's a main driving leading people is like, hey, let me tell you what you can be.
Yeah.
And when you come with that with a loving perspective, people are like, okay, I'll listen. And so you can't love people or you can't lead people unless you love them. And so that's the goal.
All you need is love, right?
Yeah. What's your next one?
So if you love people, if you're a great leader, you love people, I think you're going to be relational. You're going to develop those relationships. And to me, one of the most important traits of a leader, a good leader, when I think of people in my life that led me, they really took time to develop a relationship with me. I can only think from my own experiences. Teaching, coaching. When I played basketball, the way I knew the coach cared for me is because he wanted to have a relationship with me. He wanted to actually build something with me. And once he did that, not with just me, but with my other teammates, once he did that, then, dude, we would run through the wall for him. You know what I mean? We would run through the wall for him. And so I think as a leader, if you can build those relationships with people, and it's not easy, right? Because lives are busy, which means it has to be intentional. You have to actually go out, and seek those places. And I think once that happens, man, people will run through the wall, right? I mean, there's many people in my life I would run through a wall for because they led me and they showed me they cared about me by developing a relationship with me. And again, those relationships I still have, and man, they mean a lot to me. They mean a lot to me. And as a leader, once you build them, you get the people involved. Once the goal is set, and then you're cruising to the goal. Not that you're not ever going to have a hard time, but everybody has their mind set on that goal. And if something happens where they sidetrack, no. Your relationships, you're coming back on the right track, headed toward the same goal. And I think that's important.
I think the relationship gives you the equity to, one, hold people accountable to, which is a whole different topic we'll talk about another day. But like, the relationship gives you the equity to be able to have these conversations, say, hey, I know what's greater, right? It's not small talk anymore. It's like, hey, there's something better that I want for you.
And a little vulnerability. Sometimes I catch myself being very surface level, keeping people at a arm length. You know what I mean?
It's because you're partially famous.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That is. That is. You got me.
No, so many people love you.
No, but it's easy to do. But something I want to get better at personally.
Yeah.
I want to go deeper. I want to be more relational, not just the surface. I don't want the surface level. I want to get deeper. It's not easy to do because it takes time and it takes effort. So it's not easy.
The time thing is, most of my best relationships happen organically, right? Like it wasn't forced. I'm not saying you don't intentionally try to build relationships. I'm not saying that. I'm saying like when I think about some of my best, I think even me and you really like it wasn't a ton of effort for me to end up, enjoying being around you. But the people you enjoy the most and those relationships grow. But there are people in our lives that I feel like we have to be intentional with because we want to lead them somewhere. Yeah. And it does take work. It does take time. And but it's always worth it, man. People are always worth it. Right?
They are. They really are. And I think if you can see, results don't necessarily come every day, right? But if you can see one time where, hey, look at this. Look what this person's doing now. Then it's like, okay, I got to keep doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So not that we're results driven, but sometimes when you see something, it's encouraging. right?
No, when you see some fruit from your labor, right? And when you see like, okay, there's some hope here, like the seeds I've been planting, there's stuff, there's a harvest coming.
And what's it? I don't know. I need to do better in my scripture memory, but somewhere it says, don't grow weary in well doing, because at the proper time you'll reap a harvest, right? If you don't faint or if you don't quit. And so it's not easy to do, right? Not quitting is not easy to do. But I think if we can keep on keeping on. That's what they used to tell me, is keep on keeping on. That's what I'm just trying to do, is keep on keeping on.
Absolutely. I think that's if you don't, there's a lot of different things I've listened to, but they say if you don't quit, you win.
Yeah.
It's just faithfulness,
That's
man.
true.
It's just plowing.
That's true.
It's like if you just don't quit, you win. And there's so many people who quit on different things in life, or just quit with their faithfulness, maybe even to their church or their family or whatever. But like, hey, if you just stick the course, man, like if you just keep plowing, just keep going. And I think the compound interest over time, whether that's building relationships or whether that's, any principle in life, the growth over time is where you'll really see that harvest. If you don't get tired and where you don't quit.
That's a great point, Gunner, because, you might see the effect what you have on one person, but you don't know the effect that person is going to have on other people. I like that compound. That's a good. You just don't know, right? So that's good. I like that.
Absolutely,
that's encouraging.
And you probably have spots of that in your life, which is cool to think about. All right, but the last one. So we got servant leadership. We got you got to love people if you want to lead them. Can't lead people if you don't love them. And then we got relational leading. Like, you can't. No one wants to be led if you don't know them.
Yeah. What's
that one saying that they say? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah, that's it.
So
yeah.
One way to care about people is show you care about them, being relational.
Yeah.
And the last one right here, people would always rather follow a leader who is always real than always right. Another Craig Rochelle quote. He says it on his podcast, and I just think it's what that screams at me is like, hey, they would always rather follow someone who is real than right. What that says to me is like, hey, people just want you to be authentic with them. They just want you to be real. Just want you to be honest. And unfortunately, there's people who aren't. And we're not going to dwell on like people, people's mistakes and things like that. But people fall short in this category all the time. It's like, no, but people just want you to be real. They don't care like where you get it right all the time. Because nobody can relate to somebody who's 100% right anyways. It's like, it's cool you get it right all the time. I don't. So there's no relationship there. No, I want to follow someone who's real, who's not afraid to admit they're wrong, who don't want to play the blame game, who's okay with saying, hey, I messed up there. Someone who's open, honest, and has integrity. Because when you're authentic, people can tell. And to me, that's attractive when people are like, hey, I'm not perfect. But like, here's what I am, and I just want to try to be as authentic as I can, and that's people I want to be around.
Yeah, you brought up, I think, a great point about relating to people. You can't relate to people if you're trying to act like you don't mess up. You just can't, right? And so, and the reason being, I think, is because people want to be able to establish a common ground with you. They got to have some kind of common ground. You got to have something in common. One thing we all have in common is we all mess up.
Absolutely.
We just all mess up.
All the time.
And we all have it in common. It is what it is, right? And so when you act like you don't, or when certain leaders act like they don't, you're denying that common ground you have with everybody else. And I think that throws it out of whack.
Yeah, and you're trying to separate yourself from people. And leadership's not, we are called to live set-apart lives, but not in the fact that, like, you can't be relational with people. You're lived to set apart, be holy, be different, and be more like God, not set apart as like, oh, I'm so different because I'm more perfect than you. It's like, no, Jesus came and had meals with people and met with people, and he was relational. And it's like he's trying to bring people together. And when you're trying to act like when you're not being authentic, you're alienating yourself without even knowing it.
Yeah, and, the thing about Jesus, too, is when we compare him, how do we know he's a good leader, and why don't we compare him with all this stuff? It's because he had multitudes of people that followed him around. And it wasn't just people that, were his followers. I mean, you had people who, I mean, any random person, any occupation, they gave up what they were doing so they could just walk around to get close to him because they wanted to be near him, because he could develop those relationships with them because he was real. When he went to the Pharisees, he didn't act like a Pharisee. You know, he acted the same old Jesus. And that's admirable. That's admirable.
Absolutely,
because people connect with that.
Yeah.
You know, and people got to be able to connect with you.
Yeah.
And being authentic and real, people can connect with you, because when you're fake, they know it.
Yeah.
They know it.
Nobody wants to be around it. No one wants to be led by it either, right? And so I think, you know, if you're, even if it's a job, you know, you're trying to lead people, maybe even at your job, like people they don't want to follow somebody who's like, they can just tell us like, oh, they're wishy-washy. They're too worried about doing this. They're not really real. They're not relatable. I can't, if you're working for somebody and you can't tell that they're telling the truth, it's like, what a worry you have the whole time. It's like, I don't know if he's going to say this one day or this another day. That's people, like, they may show up to their job, but you won't have buy-in from them, right? Yeah. You won't have like the help. Like, you won't have anybody who's really going to be your ride or die when you need them. If you really want people, I think you'd be authentic.
Yeah, and I think another great point, I think, that you were getting to is the way you are in your job, or the way you are, you know, when you see me at the coffee shop, or if I'm in the drive-thru at McDonald's. I want to be the same person every place. Mm-hmm. You know, my roles may be different, right? Because in some places I have to be a teacher, some places I have to be a coach, and then, you know, so your roles may be different. But I want my ethics and my personalities to be authentic in every place I am. Because all it takes is for one time, right, for me to be like that. Somebody notices, and then my leadership, whoever I was leading, it's, you know, that I've created a separation from that person.
Yeah, and it's not that we're ever going to be perfect.
No.
But we do want to focus on, like, hey, I want to make sure I'm the same person at school, at work, at whatever. Like, I want to be the same person everywhere I go. And people like that. I mean, yeah. they don't deal. So one of my things is, like, I don't want people to guess, like, is he telling the truth or not? Like, this guy's trying to lead me. Is he telling the truth or not? I don't want people to have to guess that. Like, one of the things I try to be good at is encouraging people. And I'm not the best at it.
You are. You're pretty good.
You're pretty good. I try to be encouraging. I try to send text messages and different things here and there. But, like, I try to be good at encouraging others, because I heard John Maxwell say, like, encouraging people is just putting courage into people. That's cool, man. Like, just putting courage into people is just a cool thing to think about. But anyway, saying that, if I'm trying to encourage somebody, I don't want them to have to second guess of, like, does he really mean that? But if I'm authentic with them, if they know me, if they know that I care about them, they know that my motives are good, they know I have integrity, they know I'm honest, they don't have to sit there. I'm not going to give them some encouragement, tell them how great they're doing, tell them that God loves them, that, hey, the best is yet to come, like, God has so much in your life. That I don't want them to be like, does Gunnar really mean that? I don't want them to have to do that, man. So I want to be as authentic as I can. So when I say things that I mean, I want them to know that it's real, know that that's what I really feel about them.
Say what you mean what you say. I like it. I'll tell you something else. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't know. I know people that would rather be right than real. I don't want to be around those people.
Like know-it-alls?
I know a few.
Know-it-alls are my least favorite people, probably.
I know a few.
I love them because God tells me to.
Yeah, but it's like it's one of those that's like, do I have to? No, I'm just kidding. But no, you don't want to be around those people, right?
No.
I don't want to be around them.
No, it's just not fun. You know, like we said, I think being authentic is a great connector, right? And what's the opposite of being authentic is just someone who's, like, constantly, like, I mean, know-it-all is not the opposite of it, but it's like a characteristic of always wanting to be right. It's like, all right, man, like, it's cool, but, like, have you ever thought that you might not know it all? I mean, it's just hard to be around.
And they would probably say, no.
Actually.
Never thought of that.
And we don't need to go down that path. Saying that, people would rather follow someone who's real than someone who's right. And I think when you're just real with people, it connects them. It connects them to you, and you can connect them to the greater goal, whatever that is in the area you're leading, whether that's church, school, work, whatever that is. We want to move people to something greater than ourselves. And in leadership, we're going to do that the best way we can, any way we can get better.
Yeah, I heard, speaking of moving people in a certain direction, I heard Francis Chan, I think, who it was, say this, great movements start when the founder really gets to know God, right? Or the leader gets to know God. Great movements die or they end when the followers only know the founder or only know the leader, right? They don't get to know God. And you can take that and apply that to other things too. If you got a higher goal, as a Christian leader, of course, a higher goal is we want to push them further, right, further in the relationship with God. I love that quote, man, and it can apply to anything in our lives. Great movements will die; they will end if the followers only know the leader, right? They don't get to know the next step. They don't get to know that next goal. And again, in our case, I think it's getting them closer to God, and that's what I want to do too.
So movements die when people only know the leader, not the actual goal. So here's the thing. Leaders, anyone who's trying to lead, don't make it all about you. Because it was never meant to be anyways. So
that sums it up. Honestly, all our leadership principles, that sums it up, pretty well.
Just don't make it about you. Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching wherever you're at. Feel free to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Share it with somebody because we're all just trying to get better together. So come join us on this journey. We're going to have different guests on. We're going to have different conversations like this every now and then. But we're going to interview people who maybe are a little bit further along in this journey, can help us grow and help us get better together. So thank you once again. And until next time, keep on getting better.